Edutrainment Workshops, the insurance industry's leading education and training platform, presents Life Insurance, the entry-level series, the products, the underwriting, and the planning applications to position your practice as the premier provider of insurance products in your community. Get on board, get on track, get to where you're going. And now, your Edutrainer, national insurance columnist, Steve Savant.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm Steve Savant, your Edutrainer and coach, and I want to welcome you to our Edutrainment Workshops. And all this week we're doing our introduction into annuities, and today I'm going to be talking about the accumulation process. And I think you're going to be finding that these docs really help you understand not only the compounded issues that even Albert Einstein even thought and enjoyed, that he thought the greatest thing he ever figured out was compound interest, and I'm putting that up against E equals MC squared. That's pretty amazing if he thought that. But my idea today is I want to be able to show you some of the accumulation processes, and it's really great. If you've missed any of our annuity shows going in, just hop out to our site, www.brokersalliance.com. As soon as you come to our site, hit the on-demand red button. It's right there. All of our Edutrainment workshops, our Business Insurance Zone, the 5-day talk show on the internet, and our weekend opinion piece, Welcome to the Weekend with Steve Savant. It's all out there on archive, so if you ever get behind, and we recommend that you start always at the beginning of the course and take it all the way through, it'll really help your learning experience, and it's a great tutorial process. Now, what I want to do now is I want to introduce you to some concepts, and we're going to go to the Mondo board here and look at the accumulation process all this workshop. Okay, accumulation goals. There are 4 basic factors to accumulation goals. And I want you to consider, again, you don't have to use my mantra on this, but I kind of like selling in a chronology, always having my 4 basic points. And I can't understress the word basic, elementary, foundational thinking. When we're talking to consumers or clients, I always want to be able to at least talk in the most basic until my client tells me that I can up my vocabulary. They already know this part. I always want to lay a foundation and a good cornerstone in my thinking and concepts. Now, when I'm looking at this, 4 key changes that can change everything you're into as far as trying to accumulate. Now, consider some of these here, and I did a little graph here. It says you could increase your annual contribution, you can reallocate your savings, you can save an additional X amount of years, and you can reduce the goal that you might have your stated goal. Those are the 4 basic premises that I'm always looking at. So if I look at the original goal of 100,000 and I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm only going to get 7% rate of return, and I'm looking at 20 years to have that money, and I notice that it's not going to work out, I can't get to my goal, I have to modify one of these 4 areas. Again, am I going to increase the contribution? Am I going to reallocate our savings to something that pays more than 7%? And if I do that, am I exposing myself to principal risk? And I also want to know, should I plan? Oh, I'm not going to make it within this time frame. I better start looking at an additional 4 years. Or, and just as an example, or should I reduce my goal? It was just too lofty. Believe it or not, everybody has a great heart. But things happen in life. I have a huge chart that has all the life events that can happen. And whatever we think those costs are, they're never that cost, just by inflation alone. So when I'm looking at our goal, I try to be reasonable because I know the client has expenditures. I know they have this domestic expenses that they have to pay every month just like I do. So I just want to make sure I've hit these goals. And the number one that I look at always is, should I reduce my target because it's just too lofty? My heart was right, but I was too idyllic. I was too ideal in my thinking. So that's what I'm always looking for, is one of those 4 areas, and I want you to start thinking in those ideas so you can modify in how you're going to use your annuities. This is a perfect example, and I'm using this basic chart called Accumulating $1 Million. Now, back in the day, being a millionaire, wow, that was everything. And by the way, after going through 2008 and 9, being a millionaire might be something again. But there was a little time where $1 million wasn't really that big a deal. But I'm looking at accumulating $1 million. How long does it take to accumulate $1 million? And the answer depends on 3 things. And we already talked about three of these in the previous chart. How many years are available to accumulate the fund? What's my timeline? How long do I have to save? Number two is, what's the after-tax rate of return? Well, to know that, I have to have my client's marginal tax bracket. And remember, we use a progressive blended bracket when we talk about marginal tax brackets. And you'll want to be able to go to your CPA and ask him, hey, Mr. Accountant, what is my actual federal tax and state tax so that I can put that into my computation? And then the last one is, what is my method of contribution? Does it make a difference? Oh, yes. Is it an actual single deposit, or am I paying monthly contributions, or am I paying annual contributions? I need to know all those factors. So when I make my composite, here's the table that shows how long it takes to accumulate $1 million under varying circumstances. And of course, the results are shown are completely hypothetical. The actual growth will depend on a number of factors. Now, if you contribute $1,698, we figured this client had that kind of discretionary savings. We said, we want you to put that in investment, and he says he'd like to go after an 8% return. So he's looking at an indexed product. Now, I don't know if he's going to get 8%. He's just using that as his benchmark. Every year, he's going to have to adjust his premium or his contribution so that he can adjust to that and see what he wants to do. So when I'm looking at this, he's looking at 8%, and it should accumulate $1 million in 20 years based at that number. But what if I don't get 8%? What if it's more likely at 6%? If I did a lump sum for lump sum, I need $741,000 plus for 5 years. I got to hold that for 5 years at 6% to get back to that number. And it tells you how many years do you need to go. So back to our original, if I had a single deposit and I was trying to do it 20 years and accumulate, at 6% for 20 years, it's going to take me $302,000 and change to put that in, leave it alone, and let it defer for 20 years at 6%. So every column shows a different rate of return. 6%, 8%, maybe now you're getting outside indexing products and you're moving into variable contracts. Maybe you're looking at variable annuity to try to see if you can get 10% or 12% return. What this chart does is it tells me what my lump sum is based on the time and the rate of return, and I can get a good idea. And most of my clients will always go and circle one area where they think is decent. And as soon as they get farther out this way, I do the risk tolerance test, because now we're into areas where there's significant possibility here of loss of principal, and I want to make sure, are you ready for that? Do you have the kind of psychological profile to take a hit like we did and underwent in 2008. So I love this chart because it's a basic explanation of what we need to get to $1 million at 4 different rates, and also at 7 different, or actually 8 different time slots from 5 years to 40 years. I think this chart really helps people understand the accumulation process. This would be a chart that Albert Einstein would want to see. Now what I want to do is I want to go to another idea that's pretty basic, but it'll help us understand accumulating money tax deferred. I love this slide. And I use this with young people. Anybody under 50 is going to get this slide in my presentation. And I really recommend it because this slide, or actually I should use the word chart, is great. It's called the cost of procrastination. We talk about annuities being deferred. I look at people's investment and savings habits being deferred. They keep pushing it out into the future. They keep pushing it out saying, well, I can't do it this year, maybe a couple of years from now, because I have obligations, like I'm trying to save for a house, and I just had a child, and all those are legitimate issues, don't get me wrong. But the cost of procrastination can be a monster price tag. Let's look at this one as an example. Here's the item description. Desired future term value, I want $1,000 with the annual interest at 1% and a number of years at 6. Now look at this is today. I'm just trying to save money. Look at how much it costs me every time I delay, from today to waiting 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Whatever I invest today in my desired future sum of $1,000, I'm going to have to increase that. So if you want to accumulate $1,000 in 6 years, and assuming the rate you're getting is 1%, which by the way in today's market would be pretty much what it is, you would need to save $13 per month for the next 6 years. If you waited just 5 years, you would need to increase that savings to $83. Now, if you're a young person under 50, you should be looking at this chart and saying, especially with human mortality being what it is, you need to start today. And look how small that is. Well, of course, we're only talking about $1,000 and we're only getting 1%. But nevertheless, if I have an annuity and I can start to make contributions into my annuity regularly and do it today, even if it's a small amount, it'll pay off in the future. The cost of procrastination is a huge cost. That time value loss of use of money by delaying or procrastinating is a terrible issue, especially when you get out to your retirement years. Now I want to show you another basic concept idea that we use all the time, and we use it as a seminar icebreaker and a workshop icebreaker with clients and customers. This is an excellent tool. Many of us have heard about this before. I can't tell you how important this is in a workshop or a seminar with retail clients and customers, because this really opens up their eyes. It's a basic training issue, and it really shows the accumulation. And remember, one of the artful issues of annuity is that we defer without paying any taxes. It's a huge issue, and that deferral can help us hit these goals. And stalling taxes, even though we do pay ordinary income tax when we take constructive receipt of our annuitization or we take withdrawals, heads up, that delay, that deferral over a long period in time, generally probably post 8 years, is really positive for the client. And you want to be able to show this, and everybody can do this at the end of the night. So you've heard of the rule of 72, how money doubles, and the rule of 115, how money triples. All you have to do, the rule of 72 is a handy mathematical rule that helps you estimate approximately how many years it will take for any investment to double. The rule of 72, you just take 72 and it's divided by the interest rate. So if I have a 10% interest rate and I divide it into 72, I know that I need a 7.2 years, my money will double at 10%. So it already tells me these things. If I have a 7.2% return and I divide that into 72, it's going to take me 10 years. So what this does is it walks a client through basic idea of how to, in their mind, instead of breaking out your HP 12C calculator, which I always like to do, but if I don't want to do that, I can go ahead and say, well, you can think about your money doubling by like this. And then what we've done is we've charted it out. What if the rate of return is 1%? It would take 72, boy, think about this, especially under today's savings. If I only have a 1% and I'm saving, it's going to take me 72 years to double, right? I mean, if you want your money to triple, it'll take 115 years. I mean, we're all going to live long, but not to Methuselah. So when I'm looking at these numbers, what it does is it ranks it out basically, and this will help the client understand, I can't stay in the bank. This is 1%. Maybe they're crediting 2. It still takes 36 years to double. In the rule of 115, 57.5. I use this as an icebreaker to show people how to give a basic idea in rule of 72 and the rule of 115, but it really exacerbates my argument of why I want them to look at saving in an annuity like this. I get a little high, I'm going to get way higher rate generally than money markets and or bank CDs, and they see these numbers, how low they are. I want to try to get out there where I got maybe an indexing as an example, a little higher caps. Some of our carriers at today's date, remember it could all change, so what I'm telling you now is only today's date, are paying more than 5%. So I can look at, that's the cap. And so I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, years to double at 5%. Well, 14 is way better than 72 at the bank. And I'm not paying taxes every day like I am at the bank. I've used this chart for over 20 years in sales presentations for rate of return and to show how money doubles and triples, and it goes all the way out to 22%. Now, of course, when you start crossing out of the indexed world of annuities, which I think right now is probably capped around 6% or so, then you're going to get into exposure. Now you're into mutual funds and so forth. You're exposing your client to some bit of risk, but if they have a long haul and they have a propensity and they're suitable for that kind of investment, then that's okay. This chart is tremendous to open up an annuity workshop, and it's really great to show that this is why what we're up against, and this is why we have to choose something like an annuity for at least part of our long-term retirement portfolio. I love this chart. I've been using it all day long. You should really learn it. It'll take you probably about 20 to 30 minutes to really internalize it, and then always have it as a handout to your client. It's a great mathematical chart. Everybody gets this on the first pass. It's one of the best consumer pieces we've ever put out. We think it's excellent. And remember, you can go ahead and look at the basic rules, which we have down at the bottom, so that you can actually draw this out live in your seminar. Again, the rule of 72 and 115 on accumulation.
This has been an Edutrainment Workshop, the educational division of the National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance.